They say time heals all wounds, but some wounds, like losing the man you've loved for 46 years, simply change their shape. My name is Kathleen O'Connor, and I am 83 years old. For nearly half a century, my world revolved around Patrick, his laughter, his quiet presence, the way he'd always know when I needed a cup of tea. Now, his armchair sits empty, bathed in the morning light exactly as it always was. But the silence that fills our home is deafening. It's a silence that presses in on you, especially when you're alone for the first time in forever, trying to convince yourself and the world that you're fine. I cooked, I cleaned, I kept the routines we built together, a determined act of independence. Yet beneath that fragile veneer, a quiet dread began to bloom. It wasn't just grief, it was a deeper, colder fear, one that whispered of what happens when the strength you once took for granted starts to fade, and the world begins to see you differently. For years, I believed that aging was a gentle transition, a slow waltz into wisdom and peace. No one tells you about the insidious betrayal of your own body, how it starts with a subtle shortness of breath climbing the stairs, or a tremor in your hands that makes buttoning a shirt a small battle. It's not just the aches, it's the growing forgetfulness, a fog creeping into the sharp edges of your mind. Each small sign felt like a tiny crack in the foundation of who I was. A whisper of a future I desperately wanted to avoid. The world, it seemed, had a narrative for women like me, a story of inevitable decline, of becoming a burden, invisible, and stripped of choice. My deepest fear wasn't just the physical pain. It was the chilling realization of losing my very identity, my dignity, and the profound terror of becoming utterly helpless, a shadow in my own home, waiting for someone else to decide my fate. This is a fear I now understand, a truth I carry, and a battle I decided I would fight with every fiber of my being. Every morning, the ritual began. I'd wake before the sun, the quiet hum of the refrigerator the loudest sound in the house, a stark contrast to the gentle rustle Patrick used to make. I'd make my way to the kitchen, the worn linoleum cool beneath my feet, and boil water for my tea. Earl Grey, just as he preferred it, even if his cup remained perpetually empty on the counter. Then, I'd move through the house, a ghost of my former self, tidying, dusting, polishing the oak table until it gleamed. It was a performance, really, a meticulous ballet of domesticity designed to prove, mostly to myself, that I was still capable. This house, once bursting with life and laughter, now echoed with a silence that pressed on my chest, a constant reminder of what was lost. Yet I clung to these routines like a shipwrecked sailor to driftwood. They were my anchor, my shield against the encroaching dread of truly being alone, truly needing someone. But beneath the veneer of my carefully constructed independence, a different kind of silence grew louder. The whispers of my own body. It began subtly, a slight tremor in my hand as I tried to button my favorite cardigan, or the unexpected shortness of breath climbing the familiar stairs to our bedroom, a climb that once felt effortless. My mind, too, played tricks, a fog rolling in, obscuring names, misplacing keys, tiny betrayals that chipped away at my confidence. Each forgotten word, each unsteady step felt like a silent judgment, a proof that the world was right, that I was indeed declining. I'd catch my reflection in the hallway mirror, searching for the vibrant woman Patrick had loved, only to find a stranger, a frail shadow, haunted by the chilling thought of becoming utterly helpless. It was a fear that coiled in my gut, a primal terror of losing not just strength, but the very essence of who Kathleen O'Connor was. The morning light always felt like a silent judge, especially when it caught the dust motes dancing in the air, a reminder of the life Patrick and I had shared. My routine, rigid as a soldier's march, usually began with tea, but today, a strange weariness settled over me. I decided to start with a shower, hoping the warm water would wash away the quiet dread clinging to my bones. The steam-filled bathroom offered a fleeting comfort, a temporary shield from the world outside, from the ever-present silence. As I reached for the soap, the worn bath mat beneath my feet felt less secure than usual. A small, almost imperceptible shift, then a sudden terrifying lurch. My world tilted. My hands flew out, grasping wildly at the cold, slick tiles, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. For a horrifying moment, I was suspended between balance and catastrophe, my feet slipping, my grip failing. The splash of water intensified the panic. And then, with a jarring thud that echoed through the small space, I was down, not quite a full fall, more a crumpled heap against the shower wall, my knees stinging, my breath catching in my throat. I lay there, disoriented, the warm water still cascading over me, but suddenly feeling utterly exposed, utterly frail. The shock was immediate, a cold jolt to my system that far outlasted the warmth of the spray. It wasn't just the physical pain, the sharp ache in my hip, or the terrifying jolt of nearly hitting my head. It was the chilling realization that followed, a truth whispered by the cold tile against my cheek. What if I couldn't get up? What if I had truly fallen, broken something, and lay there, helpless and alone, for hours, or worse, for days? The thought curdled in my gut, a primal terror that eclipsed even my grief for Patrick. This wasn't just about aging. It was about the insidious creep of vulnerability, the betrayal of my own body, and the horrifying prospect of becoming a burden, invisible and utterly dependent, just as I feared most. That moment, huddled on the bathroom floor, was a brutal awakening. My carefully constructed facade of independence, my diligent routines designed to prove my capability, shattered around me like fragile glass. The world had been whispering about my decline, and now, my own body had shouted it. This wasn't merely a slip, it was a profound shift, a violent end to the illusion that I could simply carry on as before. The quiet dread I'd felt had found its voice, a deafening roar that demanded I confront my greatest fear head-on. My life, I knew then, had irrevocably changed, and the battle for my dignity had truly begun. The near fall, a brutal slap of reality, shattered my stubborn illusion of eternal independence. I couldn't just manage anymore, not truly. So, with a heart heavy with unspoken anxieties, I moved in with Erin. Her home, once a sanctuary of grandchild laughter and family dinners, now felt like a bustling station where I was a misplaced piece of luggage. I tried to help, to contribute. I'd fold laundry, only for Erin to quietly refold it to her own exacting standards. I'd offer to cook, only to be gently told they'd already planned dinner. It wasn't malice, never. It was just different. Their rhythms weren't mine. My presence, however well-intentioned, seemed to disrupt their chaos. I felt like a shadow, always present, but rarely truly seen. Then, one evening, I heard her on the phone, her voice tight, with a weariness that cut me to the bone. "It's just exhausting, Mark. I love her, but I can't keep this up." My world stopped. The words weren't angry, just profoundly, heartbreakingly honest. My deepest fear, the one I'd fought so hard to deny, had found its voice. I was a burden. A crushing weight confirmed every unspoken worry. Leaving Erin's was a quiet retreat, a confession of defeat, but I clung to the hope of a different solution. Perhaps professional help, I thought, could restore some semblance of my old life, my dignity. So, I tried in-home caregivers. They arrived with clipboards and checklists, efficient, polite, but utterly devoid of warmth. They helped me dress, prepared meals according to a prescribed diet, and ensured my medications were taken on schedule. It was care, yes, but transactional, a service rendered by the hour. Their eyes, though kind, held no memory of Patrick, no shared laughter, no understanding of the woman I was, only the tasks they were paid to perform. The house, once filled with the ghosts of a life well lived, now felt like a sterile stage for elderly independence. Each tick on their checklist felt like another nail in the coffin of my autonomy, a chilling reminder that my worth was measured by the cost of their time. The cost, both to my dwindling savings and my spirit, was unsustainable. I was paying for presence, not connection, for assistance, not belonging, and the loneliness only deepened. With my savings dwindling and loneliness a constant companion, the last resort loomed, an assisted living facility. I toured a few, bright and seemingly cheerful, but beneath the veneer of fresh paint and potted plants, I felt a suffocating confinement. The hallways, clean and well lit, stretched like endless corridors of enforced safety, where policy trumped personal choice. Residents sat in common areas, eyes glazed, engaged in activities that felt less like living and more like waiting. I saw the fear in their eyes, the quiet resignation to a fate decided by others. This was the chilling realization. Institutions, even well-meaning ones, prioritize safety over autonomy, often stripping dignity in the name of regulation. the thought of losing my home, my cherished memories, and my very identity within those walls, becoming just another resident in a sea of forgotten faces, filled me with a despair so profound it felt physical. I saw my future, stark and terrifying, utterly without options, a prisoner of my aging body, stripped of purpose and belonging, waiting for the end. The sterile smell of the assisted living facility still clung to my clothes, a phantom scent of surrender. I sat in Patrick's empty armchair, the silence amplifying the echo of my own frantic thoughts. What now? My savings were a dwindling tide, my body a fragile vessel, and my options, it seemed, had run out. The question, "Who will take care of me?" became a relentless drumbeat in my head, each thud a reminder of my encroaching helplessness. I saw myself at the end of a long, lonely road, stripped of choice, waiting for someone else to make decisions about my life, about my very dignity. The chilling truth was that I had fought so hard to remain Kathleen, but every path I'd tried only led me further from myself, deeper into this terrifying void of irrelevance. It was a despair so profound, so absolute, that it felt like the very air had been sucked from my lungs, leaving me breathless and utterly lost. But even in that suffocating darkness, a tiny ember of defiance refused to die. I looked around our living room, at the worn spines of Patrick's books, the slightly faded floral pattern on the rug, each object a testament to a life built on purpose, on shared contributions. It wasn't just about being cared for, I realized, not truly. It was about being useful, about having a reason to rise each morning beyond simply existing. A memory flickered. Patrick years ago, helping old Mrs. Henderson with her groceries, not because she paid him, but because it was the right thing to do, because it connected them. The thought was a whisper at first, then a growing voice. Had I truly become someone who only received? Had I lost the very essence of who Kathleen O'Connor was, a woman who always found a way to contribute, to nurture, to be a part of something larger? The question, sharp and clear, cut through the fog of my despair. How can I still contribute? It wasn't about denying my needs, but about redefining them. I needed connection, purpose, not just a clean plate or a buttoned shirt. The next morning, as I made my solitary cup of tea, I watched through the kitchen window. Megan, my young neighbor, a single mother, was wrestling with her toddler and a pile of groceries, a familiar struggle I'd observed for months. Her face was etched with a weariness I recognized, a silent battle against the relentless demands of life. Suddenly a realization bloomed in my chest, warm and unexpected. I saw not a recipient of my charity, but an opportunity not to be cared for, but to care, not to be a burden, but to be a bridge. Taking a deep breath, a breath that felt fuller than any I'd taken in months, I walked to my front door. My steps were still slow, my hands still trembled slightly, but there was a new resolve in my heart. I opened the door, a small, almost imperceptible gesture, yet it felt like opening a floodgate. "Megan," I called, my voice a little shaky, but firm. "Would you mind if I helped you with Claire after school sometimes? I could pick her up, maybe read her a story." The words tumbled out, vulnerable, yet filled with a burgeoning hope. Megan's eyes, surprised at first, softened into a grateful smile. In that moment, watching her nod, a profound sense of purpose, long dormant, stirred within me. It wasn't a grand solution, not a miracle, but it was a start. It was an act of choosing life, choosing connection, and choosing to be Kathleen, not merely someone waiting to be cared for. The moment Megan's smile broke through her weariness, a warmth spread through me that had been absent for what felt like years. It wasn't a sudden cure for my grief, nor did it erase the physical aches, but it was something far more profound, a quiet reclaiming of myself. Standing on my porch, the afternoon sun warm on my face, I realized I had just chosen dignity over despair. All those months of battling the fear of becoming a burden, of losing my identity, had led me to this simple yet revolutionary act. It wasn't about being cared for, not anymore. It was about caring, about being a part of the vibrant, messy tapestry of life again. The weight in my chest, a constant companion since Patrick left, eased just a fraction. This wasn't the end of my struggles, but it was an undeniable, powerful beginning. I had found a new way to stand tall, not through stubborn isolation, but through vulnerable, heartfelt connection. Our new routine blossomed quickly, a delicate but resilient flower in the concrete of my old fears. Every afternoon, the bell on Claire's school bus would chime, a sound that now filled my kitchen with with anticipation instead of silence. Walking to meet her, my steps felt lighter, my focus sharper. Claire's small hand in mine, warm and trusting, was a physical anchor to the present, pulling me out of the endless echoes of the past. We'd come back to my house, a place that now held the scent of crayons and children's books, not just faded memories. I'd read her stories, my voice finding its old rhythm, or simply sit and listen as she chattered about her day. Megan, in turn, would bring over a casserole, or insist on tidying my small garden. It wasn't payment, it was a silent, beautiful exchange, a recognition of mutual worth. I wasn't just a recipient, I was a contributor, a bridge, and in Claire's bright eyes I saw not a burden, but purpose reflected back. This small, tender connection with Megan and Claire became the first thread in a new kind of fabric for my life. Other neighbors, seeing the ease and genuine joy in our arrangement, started to approach me. Mrs. Henderson, whose cat needed feeding while she was away, or young Tom, who just needed an ear for his anxieties about starting college. My days, once defined by the quiet dread of emptiness, now hummed with gentle purpose. I realized that true independence wasn't about fierce self-reliance, but about weaving myself back into the human web, where giving and receiving were two sides of the same coin. My home, once a monument to loss, became a hub of small, meaningful exchanges. I was still Kathleen O'Connor, but a Kathleen reborn, not defined by what I had lost or what I could no longer do, but by the quiet, powerful strength of my connections. The fear of invisibility had faded, replaced by the profound, comforting truth that I was finally, truly seen. Looking back, I see now that my greatest fear wasn't truly about falling, or even about Patrick's absence, though both were profoundly real. It was the chilling prospect of losing my very essence, of becoming an empty vessel waiting for someone else to fill my days, to make my choices. The near fall in the shower wasn't just a physical jolt, it was a brutal awakening, forcing me to confront the societal narrative that wanted to strip me of my agency. I wrestled with the loneliness, the guilt of potentially burdening Aaron, the sterile efficiency of paid caregivers, and the suffocating conformity of assisted living. Each step felt like a compromise, a surrender of self, until I understood that true independence wasn't about doing everything alone, but about finding a new purpose, a new way to contribute. It was about shifting from who will care for me to how can I still be Kathleen. This simple change in perspective, this embrace of reciprocity, became my anchor, my new definition of dignity. So if there's one truth I've learned in these 83 years, it's this. Aging with dignity isn't about avoiding help. It's about finding purposeful ways to give and receive within a supportive community. It's about understanding that our worth isn't measured by our physical strength or our ability to be fiercely self-reliant, but by our capacity for connection, for contribution, for being a vital thread in the human tapestry. My hope for you watching this is that you don't wait for a fall or a moment of despair to realize this. Look around you, see the needs, offer your hand, and allow others to offer theirs. Don't let the world tell you that your purpose ends with youth, or that needing help means losing yourself. Instead, find your unique way to be useful, to belong, and in doing so, you'll discover a richness in life that time, even with all its losses, can never truly diminish. That, I believe, is the truest independence of all.